I have a safe in the basement full of gold, and a drawer in this desk full of deeds. To the world, I am a man who succeeded, but I'd trade every single one of those papers for a Tuesday afternoon in 1985. I spent 40 years convinced that providing was the same thing as loving. I thought if I gave my children a life of comfort, I was giving them a life of meaning. I wore my busyness like a shield. I thought every hour I spent away from them was a deposit into their future. But here's the thing about a big house. It's a very quiet place once the children leave. Imagine it's 50 years from today. You aren't here anymore. Your children are sitting in a room, and they're talking about you. Do you think they're talking about your promotion? Do you think they're reminiscing about the square footage of their childhood home or the brand of the car you used to drive them to practice? 50 years from now, the stuff is just clutter. The money is just a number. The only thing that will still be alive of you is the way you made them feel when you walked through the front door. I spent my life building a vault, only to realize I was the one locked inside it. I want to tell you about the moment I realized my success was actually my greatest failure. And more importantly, why it's not too late for you to change the math of your own legacy. I look at this room sometimes and I realize I bought the silence. I paid for it with my children's voices. Back in the 80s, I lived by a clock that never stopped ticking. I wasn't a bad man. I wasn't even a cold man. I was just a man who was convinced that love was something you deposited into a bank account. I remember coming home when my daughter Sarah was small. I'd walk through the door, and I could hear her playing in the next room. I could hear the life happening without me. And instead of dropping my keys and joining in, I would go straight to this desk. I'd close the door. I told myself I was protecting them. I told myself that the quiet I needed to work was the price they had to pay for the life I was giving them. I spent 20 years being the most important person in every room, except the rooms that actually mattered. I was providing a good life, the best schools, the summer camps, the beautiful vacations, but I was doing it like a ghost. I was a name on a check, but I wasn't the hand that held hers when she was scared. 50 years ago, I thought I was a hero for being so exhausted. I thought my fatigue was proof of my devotion. But looking back from 87, I see a man who was just hiding. I was hiding in my work because it was easier to be a success than it was to be a father. It's much easier to balance a ledger than it is to sit on the floor and figure out how to be a person again. The moment the lie finally broke, it didn't happen in a boardroom or a bank. It happened on a random Sunday, right here in this study, about 15 years ago. I was cleaning out the bottom drawer of this desk. I found a small stack of "I owe you" notes I'd written to my children when they were small. "I'll play catch next Saturday. I'll take you for ice cream when this deal closes." The paper was yellowed at the edges. The ink had started to fade. I realized I had spent my life writing checks for a later that I never actually showed up for. I had plenty of currency, but I was completely out of time. Sarah was visiting that day. She was 30 then, with a child of her own. I tried to show her those notes, thinking we'd laugh about them. I said, "Look at these, Sarah. I really was working hard for you back then, wasn't I?" She didn't laugh. She didn't even smile. She just looked at those scraps of paper with a kind of distant, polite pity. She said, "Dad, Those aren't memories. Those are just the things I eventually stopped waiting for. In that moment, 50 years of providing felt like a heap of cold metal. I looked around this room at the expensive books and the fine wood, and I felt like a beggar. I realized that my vault wasn't full of security. It was full of missed connections and ghosts. I had built a skyscraper, but I was the only one standing on the roof. And the view wasn't worth the climb. I've sat in this chair for a long time now, doing the math of a lifetime. And I've realized that we've been taught the wrong formulas. We think that providing is a physical act, buying the house, paying for the degree, filling the fridge. But 50 years from now, your child won't be able to tell you the square footage of their bedroom. What they'll remember is the temperature of the house. Was it warm with your laughter? Or was it chilled by your stress? I have a friend, a man who never made half of what I did. But when his daughter speaks of him, her eyes light up. She doesn't talk about what he bought her. She talks about the way he used to smell like sawdust and old peppermint, and the way he'd sit on the edge of her bed and listen, really listen, to the small, silly dramas of her day. That's the first thing I'd tell you if I could reach through this screen and grab your shoulder. Presence isn't an event. It's an atmosphere. You think you're giving them a future by working late, but you're actually stealing the only version of you they'll ever have. You're trading a living, breathing father for a pile of cold inheritance. And then there's the busyness trap. We wear our exhaustion like a medal. We think if we're tired, we're doing it right. But look at your hands. Are they busy holding a phone? Or are they busy holding theirs? 50 years from now, that email you're stressing over won't exist. That meeting will be a footnote in a company that's already forgotten your name. But the way you looked at your son when he walked into the room, that look will be the foundation of his entire self-worth. We focus so much on the what, the schools, the cars, the gadgets. But children only remember the how. How did you make them feel when they failed? Did they feel like a project to be managed or a person to be known? Money can build a house, but only your stillness can build a home. Don't wait until the rooms are empty to realize that the most valuable thing you ever owned was the Tuesday afternoon you gave away for free. I see the way you sit in your car for 5 extra minutes in the driveway, staring at the garage door, trying to breathe the stress of the office out of your lungs before you go inside to be dad or mom. You tell yourself you're doing it for them. You tell yourself that the late nights, the missed dinners, and the constant hum of anxiety in your chest are the price of their happiness. You think that if you just run a little faster, you can buy them a life where they never have to struggle. But let me tell you something from the other side of 80. Your children don't want a life without struggle. They want a life with you. They don't need a father who is a success at a company that will replace him in a week. They need a father who is a success at the dinner table. They need the version of you that isn't checking a phone under the tablecloth. They need the version of you that remembers how it feels to just be. 50 years from now, the promotion you're killing yourself for won't even be a line in your obituary. The house you're working so hard to pay off will belong to strangers who will paint over your favorite walls. But the way you smelled like the outdoors when you gave them a hug, the way you stopped everything just to listen to a story about a bug in the garden, that is the only part of you that will still be breathing 50 years from today. Don't spend your life building a vault for a child who just wants a walk in the rain. Stop being a provider for a moment and start being a person. Because the most expensive thing you can ever give your children is the version of yourself that is actually, truly present. I'm 87. My house is large and my halls are quiet. I'm spending my final years trying to learn the names of the flowers in my garden, the things I was too busy to notice 50 years ago. I want to hear from you. We've all written those "I owe you" notes in our heads. What is the one Tuesday afternoon thing you've been putting off? What is the one memory you're going to start building tonight instead of just another dollar? Leave a comment. Tell me what you're putting down today so you can pick up your child's hand tomorrow. I'm David. This is 50 years from now. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'll see you in the next one.